I'm Caitlin Giles McCormick, here with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Today's session is on the Garden State Commercial Property Assisted Clean Energy, or the CPACE program. We are looking forward to your feedback more than anything today, and you'll be hearing more about exactly how to provide that feedback from our main presenters. To get us started with the presentation on the Garden State CPACE program, I will be shifting things over to the Director of Clean Energy Programs, Kevin Lynch. Kevin?
Thank you, Caitlin, and welcome to all the participants for joining today's Garden State CPACE webinar. And to start things off, my name again is Kevin Lynch, Director of Clean Energy, and I'm also joined with Alex Hadron and Jonathan Ratner, along with Kathleen Coviello, who is the Chief Economic Transformation Officer for the New Jersey EDA. At this time, I'm just going to ask Kathleen to give a few comments and introduction as an overview before we start the presentation.
Great, thanks so much, Kevin. Terrific to be with everyone this morning. I know there's been a lot of built up anticipation for the Garden State CPACE program. Really just want to provide some opening remarks relative to this program. It is one of several pieces of the portfolio of our clean energy initiatives at the state of New Jersey and the Economic Development Authority. I know many folks have heard about our endeavors to build the offshore wind industry in New Jersey. We believe having financing tools in place for not just offshore wind, but all of clean energy is an important next step to help us meet Governor Murphy's aggressive clean energy goals in the state. We've gotten a lot of interest and inquiries about when we will have the program live and documents up, and you will hear more about that today. But given the very strong interest and demand, we decided it was time to pull back the curtain and share with you all some of the work that's been happening by our clean energy products team to help advance the CPACE program. I think many of our listeners who've joined us today probably know that this is a legislative program. So a lot of what you will hear is mandated by the law, particularly in this program, more so even than many of our other programs at the EDA. The law is very, very highly defined and giving us guidance on what we can do and not do in this program. But as the team walks you through, you'll hear where there has been some policy decisions made, and we will look for feedback on specific items that you'll hear from today. I know there will be a lot more questions to follow. And so to that end, we will share a mailbox where we would welcome your questions. We will do our best to answer them. And then we will certainly want to assure you that we will be posting for all to see the guidelines and the documents for the CPACE program. So this is really a preview of what's to come, with more detail to follow. But again, wanted to make sure that we started to share with you all that the work is actively underway. And we very much look forward to launching this program as part of our clean energy goals in the state. So with that, I'm going to turn the microphone back to Kevin Lynch.
Thank you, and thanks for giving me the microphone. We're going to start off with a discussion in terms of the topic and previews. We're also going to look at the CPACE background, overview, and benefits. And following that, we'll look at Garden State CPACE specifics, as well as general program requirements, types of eligible improvements, project application processes. Following that, we'll look at EDA's role in the Garden State CPACE program, next steps, timing, and then we'll open it up in terms of an open discussion period. Next slide, please. In keeping with the agenda, we will focus on the two topics that I mentioned earlier, new construction and municipality outreach. In terms of new construction, the statute contemplates that EDA will expand the program to include new construction with 90 days of initial program launch. Existing CPACE programs have taken various approaches for handling new construction projects. The questions that we're going to be addressing in this session: question number one, how should the program determine the overall portion of new construction financing capital stack that can be financed under the Garden State CPACE program? Question 2, what other issues, if any, are raised by new construction as opposed to retrofit financing that EDA should ensure they address in implementing the new construction supplement to the program? So that's topic number 1, 2 questions. Topic number 2, municipality outreach. The statute does not address the subject of municipality outreach. However, it is a critical step, we believe, in the ability to implement the CPACE projects under the program. 2 questions relating to that topic. What would be the most effective ways to recruit New Jersey municipalities to opt into the Garden State CPACE program? How can EDA, as an administrator of the program, most effectively provide support to municipalities participating in the program? Very 2 important topics which we wanted to cover, and certainly looking for a great deal of feedback around these questions. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Jonathan Ratner to discuss the background of CPACE as well as its benefits.
Okay, next slide. And thanks, Kevin. Yeah, we know we have lots of attendees on today's call, and attendees with very different kinds of backgrounds. Some have been already active in CPACE programs in other states, and for others, CPACE is a new concept, a new kind of program. So I want to take a couple of minutes to just do some level setting and talk more generally about what CPACE is all about before Alex will turn to some of the specifics under our statute about how our CPACE program will work. Generally speaking, commercial property assessed clean energy is a mechanism by which the local unit of government in a state, so in our case, the municipality, that assesses and collects property taxes, uses that authority to treat a property owner's obligation to repay a construction loan as a special assessment. So a local government entity, for New Jersey, it'll be the municipality, places a lien on the subject property, and then the local government agrees to bill, collect, and enforce that lien, that special assessment, in the same way it does property taxes. Payments are made by the property owner to the government unit, and then those payments are remitted back to the lender. Think of it as being very similar to a municipal special assessment that's created for groups of property owners for expenditures like sidewalk and sewer upgrades and repairs, which has gone on for a very long time in New Jersey and in most other states as an assessment process at the local level. As with property taxes, the CPACE lien continues to attach to the property, surviving any and all transfer of the property, even through bankruptcy or foreclosure sales. And very importantly, CPACE loans are not subject to acceleration like regular commercial loans would be. Okay. Typically, these programs have focused on the financing of energy efficiency improvements, installation of renewable power, and in some cases, resiliency measures. As we'll discuss, our program by statute will support all 3. It cannot be used in New Jersey and still in most states for residential construction projects. Most of the early programs really just focused on improvement and retrofit of existing buildings. More recently, programs are adding the financing of new construction and the refinancing of existing loans. And as we'll discuss, those are elements that are included in our statute and will be part of our program. CPACE requires state legislation because of the legal aspect of needing to authorize a local government property taxing unit to use their assessment power in this way. And a public purpose for using that assessment authority this way has to be articulated. And the local government, to be clear, doesn't have any responsibility for the CPACE debt. They are facilitating the loan, but the loans are made by third parties. The whole arrangement offers very, very strong repayment security for the loan. The lien is regarded as paramount, first priority, could be on exactly the same level of priority as property tax. In the case of our statute and lots of other states, It's just right behind repayment of property tax as in priority of repayment. This is not a new concept. There are more than 2 dozens with active state programs, probably another dozen or so that, like us, have statutes on the books. We're in the process of implementing them. There's actually been, we passed our statute. It was enacted into law, signed into law by the governor in August of 2021. We actually have had a CPACE statute on our books in the state since 2011, but that was a very skeletal, short form of statute, didn't even distinguish between commercial PACE and residential PACE, and for a variety of reasons has never been regarded as a basis for creating a real CPACE program in the state. Next slide, please. Very quickly, CPACE has lots of benefits for all the various participants in the clean energy ecosystem. Borrowers get, because of the nature of the security, they can get longer term financing at lower interest rates. That longer term enables smaller debt service payments, so lots of deals can pencil out and projects can pencil out that otherwise wouldn't. No personal recourse for the borrowers, no personal guarantees. And it can typically get off balance sheet treatment, which can be important to a borrower in terms of, keeping its additional opportunities for other kinds of borrowing. Municipalities, important to stress that this is a voluntary opt-in program. It supports, enables, provides a way for municipalities to support measures that will reduce greenhouse gas and other criteria pollutants emitted by their commercial and industrial sector. Also, in our case, to support resiliency measures, enhances the tax base because of the improvements being done to properties or the new construction, and it boosts local economic development. Mortgage holders have to approve a CPACE loan. If there's a mortgage on the property, it must be approved by the mortgage holder. A lot of increasing level of comfort with mortgage holders with CPACE programs. They see that the program enhances the value of their collateral. And the fact that these loans, CPACE loans, can't be accelerated is very important for mortgage holders and getting comfortable with them. And you even start to see mortgage lenders entering the market also now as CPACE lenders. For contractors, it helps them close deals because often financing is the critical piece of getting a project done. Finally, capital providers, what's core for them is that, as I've said, it's the improved security that their loans have with this kind of assessment structure run through the municipality, standing behind them. And our program, like most all programs in the state, will be an open platform program, meaning any capital provider that meets the basic requisites of the program will be permitted to participate in the program and make loans. Competition is key to the success of this kind of program. Back to you, Kevin. On to Alex, I guess, or straight on to Alex.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, everybody. Hi, my name is Alex Hydrian. I'm a manager on the clean energy team here at NJEDA, and I'm going to walk you through some of the Garden State CPACE program specifics here. So, starting out with eligible projects, as we've discussed a few times already, there are a wide variety of types of projects that will be supported under the Garden State CPACE program. To be considered an eligible project, a project must be affixed to an eligible property, which we'll discuss on the next slide, and be for the acquisition, construction, installation, or modification of one of these types of improvements that are listed here on the screen. And I'm not going to read through the definitions, feel free to read them as I'm talking here. But just to kind of highlight, not only will the Garden State CPACE program cover, projects involving some of the more typical CPACE related improvements like energy efficiency, renewable energy systems, EV charging infrastructure, energy storage. It will also include resiliency improvements, as we refer to them, those final three on the screen here: flood resistant construction, hurricane resistant construction, as well as stormwater management systems. So really a wide variety of projects, hopefully to be impactful for the state of New Jersey. And now some additional requirements under the Garden State CPACE program. As I mentioned earlier, an eligible property Here are the parameters that determine what an eligible property is. One note here regarding located in a participating municipality. This is a term from the Garden State CPACE statute. And in order to become a participating municipality, a municipality needs to opt in to the Garden State CPACE program, which will include, filing an opt-in ordinance, as well as entering into a program agreement with EDA. Just to kind of highlight a few other things on this page. One regarding eligible costs and specifically regarding program fees listed here. EDA staff have recommended program fees that would be at the lower end of what we have identified as the market range. So when the program guidelines come out in the near future, hopefully that's reflective of that lower end of the range that we're targeting in our program design. And then, going on to the CPACE financing terms, these are almost entirely directly from the statute, requiring that, in order to be financed through the CPACE program, a project must have a debt to value ratio not exceeding 90%, that the term length cannot exceed either the weighted average useful life of the improvements or 30 years, whichever is less. As we've discussed previously, you must obtain mortgage or lien or any lien holder's consent. The terms must be negotiated between the eligible owner and the capital provider. And then this last one, important to note, there's no statutory minimum savings to investment or SIR ratio or threshold. Now, just to kind of note, while there's no calculation, there's no threshold that's being required under this program, a SIR calculation may be required for certain projects in an effort to ensure that property owners are fully aware of the financial characteristics of the proposed project. But important to note, even in the cases where we may require a SIR to be calculated, this calculation and its value will not impact EDA's project approval decision. So it's really a informational tool and calculation that we're going to require for certain projects, really to just help inform those property owners about the financial characteristics of the project. Now I'd like to briefly walk through the process for a potential borrower to obtain financing for a CPACE project under the Garden State CPACE program. The process will start with a pre-application that will help inform EDA of the potential borrower's interest in the program and some details about their potential project. This will also help facilitate EDA staff meeting with the potential borrower to answer any questions that they may have about the program. Should a potential borrower decide to apply to the program, they will submit an application to EDA. As part of this application, the potential borrower will need to identify a capital provider for the project. And as Jonathan already mentioned, we're hoping to have a lot of capital providers decide to participate in this program, and we will be establishing a process to become a qualified capital provider to participate. The potential borrower will also need to submit and have conducted certain technical audits. So these technical audits will be used as a mechanism to ensure that certain statutory and program requirements have been met, such as the weighted average useful life of the improvements, that the fact that the improvements are by definition eligible improvements, things like this. Now, just keep in mind that there is no minimum savings to investment ratio threshold here to be eligible for the program. That's not the intent of the technical audit, to determine eligibility from a savings to investment ratio standpoint. The level of detail of these technical audits will vary depending on the type and complexity of the improvements for particular projects. And this program is being designed to utilize third-party technical reviewers to conduct these audits, who EDA will qualify to participate in the program. It will be incumbent on the applicant to source these technical reviewers from a list of qualified reviewers that we'll make available on our website and make publicly available. Additionally, as part of the application, the applicant will need to obtain consent from all existing mortgage and lien holders, as we've discussed previously, and finally submit the complete application with all supporting documentation. Once EDA receives that receives the application, we'll review it for completeness, ensure that the project meets the technical, the statutory and program requirements of the program, and issue an approval letter for the CPACE financing to proceed. At this point, It'll be on the borrower and the capital provider to enter into a finance agreement and to coordinate with the municipality to impose and record the lien and assign the lien to the capital provider. And then finally, post-approval, after the completion of the project, the borrower will be responsible to submit a post-construction report summarizing the completion of the project, and the capital provider will be responsible to submit annual loan status updates as is required under the CPACE statute. And now back over to you, Kevin.
Thank you, Alex. I think I'm still on mute.
Nope, you're good, Kevin. I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. As Jonathan has mentioned, there are varying kinds of programs at the local and state level, but in terms of our role, we're going to be looking at programmatic and transaction-specific processes. In terms of programmatic, the legislation requires that the EDA design the program in full detail consistent with the legislation and to launch it. So that's essentially what we're going to do in terms of being involved in the programmatic side. We're also going to design the program includes preparing program guidelines and other key documents used at the program and project loan levels, and then publishing them on EDA's website. We're also going to benchmark with other programs and engage stakeholders. In addition to that, we're also going to be looking at recruiting and qualifying capital providers, technical reviewers, and municipalities. In terms of our transaction-specific role, we will be reviewing and approving property owner applications based on statutory requirements and CPACE guidelines to use the CPACE program to facilitate loan arrangements. In addition, we'll also be looking at technical and financial review of proposed projects. We will also require borrower property owners to conduct technical review of proposed projects, rely on certifications and technical reviewers and financial characteristics of the project. So essentially, our role is primarily going to be programmatic and transaction specific. And turning over to the next slide. Certainly one big question in the marketplace is timing, and we are keenly focused on this issue. And this slide basically outlines the steps in which we have to go through in order to approve the program. Step number one, certainly public comment. We will make the documents available for public comment. Program guidelines, pre-application, legal agreements, it's all included. We're anticipating that will occur sometime in the last quarter of 2022. The second stage will be participant engagement. Prior to the program's official launch, interested participants will have an opportunity to express interest in participating in the program. And in terms of step three, phase one, the program launch. After incorporating comments, EDA will roll out the program. Program requires EDA board approval to include OAG review, the governor's office review, standard EDA board approval process, and these are all the steps that we have to go through in terms of getting the program approved internally as well. Stage four, phase two program launch. Following the initial program launch, the EDA will expand the program to include new construction and financing projects. I will turn it over to Jonathan to recap the questions that we are going to entertain as well as the topics that we're going to cover in this webinar.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I think the slide is back up. Just to recap, these are two quite meaty topics that we very much are in need and of public input on. We are asking that everyone keep their comments focused on these topics for purposes of this session. Just want to reiterate, as Kevin has just said, all of the program documents will be posted in draft form. That means the draft guidelines, program guidelines, as well as drafts of all of the other forms of documents that are required to implement the transactions under the program. And we're expecting a very robust process of stakeholder comment and input, and fully expect that we're going to be receiving comments that we will then want to address and reflect in changes that will be made to the draft, documents. So for today's purposes, the focus is on these two issues. New construction, we fully recognize that this is a growing area of CPACE and is rapidly becoming, from a sort of dollars invested perspective, loan perspective, becoming, in many states, even the larger category, larger than retrofit. But we do recognize that it also does implicate some unique issues that retrofits do not. On the municipality side, as we've said, there's nothing in the statute that addresses how, if at all, the program and EDA should support the municipal outreach process. But we're very cognizant of the fact, no opt-in for municipalities, no program. So that's a pretty fundamental issue that we're looking for, input on. Last thing I'll mention is that, we do recognize that there's a pipeline that has been developing. We've already had occasion, and we've offered generally, to the marketplace. We've already participated in discussions with potential project developers and lenders on a number of projects that are, on the radar screen and that are coming into lenders and developers pipelines. We will, when we post the documents in draft form, also implement an informal indication of interest process where parties that would like to, on a voluntary basis, just indicate to us that they've got a project that they're ready to move forward with and want to engage in any preliminary discussion with us about that project. Will be available for that starting when all the documents are posted. At this point, I think I'll turn it back to Caitlin, because I think we're ready to start hearing from you all that have taken the time to join with us today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the great presentation. And just to touch base on the logistical side of things, right now I see that we've got one person with their hand up. I know sometimes it can be slow to get started and hard to be the first person, but if you would like to give a comment verbally, you can find your raise hand button under the Zoom controls and maybe under your reactions, depending on which version of Zoom you have. But that way I know that you would like to be unmuted and would like to share a comment. Just a reminder, we ask that you keep those comments civil, on topic, with those two questions that you see now on your screen. And we also ask that you please identify yourself and your association. If you've got several folks on from the same organization, we want to try to get to hear from everybody and all organizations as best as possible. So we are asking you to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. I'll be kind of informally keeping track of that, and I will interject if needed, and we will absolutely come back around again if there is enough time after folks get their first chance to share their comments. So we've got a few more people that have raised their hands, so I am going to go ahead to Lisa. I've allowed you to talk, so if you can unmute yourself on your end and identify yourself and what you're associated with, go for it. Lisa, you've got the floor. All right, hold on. Let's try that. All right, Lisa, we will come back to you. You do have to unmute yourself. I'm not sure if you're chatting or if you've stepped away. So I'm going to remove her permission to talk, and we'll go to the next person. Jonathan Cloud. Go ahead and unmute yourself and identify yourself. Yeah.
Yes, hi, it's actually Victoria Zelling Cloud. And I am from New Jersey PACE, or NJ PACE, and we're the nonprofit that has been the earliest and most consistent champion for PACE for over the last decade that we've been working on this, and so excited And this is a very clear presentation. Very, very impressed. Thank you. My question, Jonathan, you had said once a project is ready to go, you can reach out, someone associated with the project can reach out for conversation, preliminary discussion when the documents are posted. And what did you mean by, and what documents are you talking about?
Oh, sure. Okay, Victoria, I mean, just to kind of be, clear, I mean, generally speaking, we're gonna, not take questions now, but, more leave the floor open for folks to kind of state their views and opinions. But I mean, to the extent that we don't have a huge groundswell of folks with their hands up, and this is kind of really seeking a clarification. What I was referring to is just that at the same time that we post the draft guidelines and all of the draft forms of documents that under the statute, as you know, are referred to as assessment documents, we will open up this informal indication of interest, process just for parties, whether it's a lender or a building owner or a developer, that, or even a municipality that, is involved in discussions with parties about a potential project, in the municipality, just to open up a channel to start, informal dialogue around, around projects. Again, we'll be having those discussions with the benefit of the statute, which is obviously locked and loaded and I mean, it's going to clear as far as it goes, but then, without the benefit of the final version of the guidelines and the draft documents, because we need to await that input from the public, and then any changes we need to, we feel we want to implement to the documents before we will, actually launch the full program. But we expect that there'll be a basis for some good and productive discussions through this, informal indication of interest process that will, launch at the same time as we initially post the draft documents. Again, the guidelines and all the other assessment documents that are contemplated by the statute.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're gonna try Lisa again. Lisa, are you there? You do have to unmute yourself, Lisa. All right, we're pushing her back down to the bottom. Okay. How about, I've got Jonathan Cloud on here again. I think you're just there twice. Genevieve Sherman, if you can unmute yourself, you can go ahead and feel free to identify yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is Genevieve Sherman, Head of Policy and New Products at Naveen Green Capital. We're a financier of commercial PACE projects. And thanks for the presentation today. Also to Jonathan, to Kevin, to Alex. It's great to see this moving forward. Jonathan, I'm not sure how to do this without asking anything in the form of a question. So I'll try to do this as a statement. With respect to your question about municipal outreach, I think it would be very helpful for groups like ours. We would be better positioned to give you constructive feedback on the most effective ways to recruit New Jersey municipalities if we had a little bit more information on how the New Jersey EDA intends to work with municipalities or contract with them. So I'm not sure if the draft documents that you've just referred to will also include like a template ordinance or resolution that a municipality would adopt, and or copies of, a template like agreement a municipality would enter into with the EDA. But to the extent that you are able to share those, or if it's appropriate for stakeholders to engage with the New Jersey EDA on that topic, then I think we would love to help provide support in municipal outreach. I think absent having those documents will be a little bit hamstrung in how to provide that constructive feedback on the effective way to recruit municipalities, because in our experience, what municipalities really want and need to understand our roles and responsibilities between the two parties. Thank
Okay.
you.
Again, maybe a second exception to the rule, and in light of the fact that we don't have a huge pipeline of folks right now with their hands raised, and just again to try to clarify, Genevieve, what we are going to post will be a comprehensive set of documents, essentially all the documents that we are by statute required to post in order to officially launch the program and have the program become active. So the documents that will be posted will include a draft ordinance, among other things, a draft municipal ordinance, a draft program agreement between each municipality and EDA, draft forms of the assessment agreement between a borrower and the municipality, and the assignment agreement between municipality and the lenders. All of those agreements and forms of documents that are contemplated by the statute will be posted. And again, just to emphasize, we do fully expect robust comment and input from various stakeholder groups, certainly from the various CPACE lenders, and expect that we'll be getting a lot of important feedback and input that we'll need to consider before finalizing all the documents and the program guidelines.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that. I think that's great, and certainly we'll be happy to submit written comments to the address provided here in terms of just tactics and ways, methods we've seen that are really helpful and effective in recruiting municipalities. So very happy to support you all on that.
Yep, and very much looking forward, to hearing from you all once the draft documents, the full set of draft documents have been, made public for comment as well.
This time I'm on mute. We're going to move to the next person in line, Ram Patro. You had to unmute yourself.
Yes, I have.
Wonderful. We can hear you. Identify yourself, please.
My name is Ram Patel. I am involved with a group called Commercial Credit. We are very much interested in making New Jersey CPACE program as a successful and very viable program. I am involved with complicated lending matters for the last 40 years. And I have a group of bankers, bond underwriters, and a bunch of other people who are in the lending business and putting projects together from a lending point of view. And I would not get into a question. The comment is, if we were to get our program, and by the way, I'm a New Jersey resident for the last 50 years. So it's near and dear to me to make sure that New Jersey does well. And this is an exciting program. And we are trying to see how would we get a mainstream bank, small or mid-sized regional banks, to get into the lending process, because there are two steps to it. And when you really look at the underwriting process of banks and how what they do with the loans, most of them really resell them or whatever. It is very difficult to have the two parts of it. One is above their first mortgage, and split it up. It's so we would be discussing with you, and hopefully we can come up with some solutions with the help of bankers that are on the team to come up with something that is viable, where the mid-sized banks, especially New Jersey regional banks, can go out and promote these types of projects, which is where the state wants to be, which is what we all want to do, is to promote energy savings, green projects. This is my comment. I don't think we could come up with an answer today, but these are our focuses to make sure that mid-sized projects are also viable. And the previous question by Genevieve was a hell of a question. And that's also of importance to us to make sure that we can sell, or we can impress on municipalities that this is something that would help their municipalities in propelling growth and being in the right direction.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the next person, we've got Clifton. You can go ahead and identify yourself by name and just association and whatever your comment may be.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Cliff. Can you hear me all right?
Yes,
Yep.
we can.
Great. My role in the CPACE field is as executive director of a trade group called the CPACE Alliance, and our members are more than a dozen of the major capital providers around the country, as well as half a dozen law firms that specialize in CPACE lending and financing. So we were very much involved in advocating for the CPACE statute, and we want to thank NJEDA and all the New Jersey officials who have put effort into bringing this program to its current point. As you know, the statute has some tight timelines that were intended to try to accelerate the launch of the program. And so we've been looking forward to seeing the published documents on the NJEDA website. And so we are excited that we're at this point. We're a little disappointed that it's substantially later than what the statute targeted. As to the questions that you posed, I think the program should determine the overall portion of new construction financing capital stack that can be financed by reference to the LTV requirements that are in the statute, and that there should not be any additional restrictions that are placed above and beyond what is spelled out in the statute for the amount of CPACE financing. Related to your second question, what other issues are raised by NewCon? Some jurisdictions have engaged, some jurisdictions have tried to or have debated themselves internally whether to allow the financing in a new construction project of any portion that maybe burns carbon or fossil fuels. And I think that New Jersey should, if that is an issue that's on the mind of NJEDA, the burning of fossil fuels, I think it's important that the CPACE financing rules not be any more restrictive than apply to all other buildings. In other words, we shouldn't disqualify a component, and we certainly shouldn't disqualify a building if it's burning fossil fuels, unless that is a prohibition that applies to all other buildings as well. We don't want to saddle extra requirements on the CPACE financing above and beyond what's required by the law itself. Otherwise, we end up making CPACE financing seem less attractive relative to all other forms of financing.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cliff. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next person, Michael Yackey. If you can unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. This is Michael Yackey. I'm the Senior Vice President of Petros Pace Finance, one of the nation's largest capital providers for CPACE and familiar to my friend Jonathan on the line. Couple of comments. One, I wanted to echo what both Genevieve and Cliff and others have said about any sort of cap on CPACE proceeds. Dollar caps are, I think, clumsy, and they don't really go towards how financiers really evaluate the appropriate sizing of the capital stack, which, as Cliff said, is LTV. So I would suggest looking more at an LTV standard than anything with a hard dollar limit. Petros has done some of the largest CPACE financings in the country. We did the $89 million project, the first project ever in New York City at 111 Wall Street. We just did a $153 million project in Utah that we closed last month. It's really not because of the presence of lender consent in this. You are essentially receiving what I could call triple underwriting on the deal. The first underwriting being done first by the senior lender, second by the CPACE capital provider, and third by the senior lender again, factoring in what they believe would be an appropriate limit given their position in the property after a CPACE lien would be recorded. So I think that really takes care of the issue of what that would be. And just as a ballpark measure, I would say that statutes and programs across the country run anywhere the gamut between, at a high of about 35% or so for a max LTV. Again, that would be certainly tempered by whatever the preference and tolerance level of the senior lender or lenders on the property would be. The other thing I would, with regard to the municipality outreach, which Genevieve talked about, I would say that earlier is better than later. I think that there's certainly been a lot of interest and discussion on PACE in New Jersey for quite some time. I've been involved in various forms since 2015 in New Jersey, and I think that being able to have a stakeholder meeting with municipalities, as well as inviting capital providers to be part of that discussion, will be helpful, because nothing moves adoption faster than the prospect that there is a potential project in a municipality's jurisdiction. And we, since this statute was passed last year, the amount of project development and business development that's gone on amongst our community has been very high, and there are already I know from any number of my colleagues and our own company as well, that there are projects that are very desirous of moving forward. And in an environment where interest rates continue to rise, the steps between adoption and closing need to be as tight and as close in a window as possible. So being able to have that kind of outreach discussion to get municipalities aware that this will be coming forward, and what responsibilities under the statute may be delegated to them or required of them, is going to be really important, so we can sort of ease the friction of adoption going forward as soon as possible, so that counties and cities or townships or whatever can adopt as quickly as possible and allow applications to EDA to be moved as quickly as possible for closings to occur, because there is a certain added urgency nowadays because of the way that the Fed is playing with interest rates. So those are my comments. I appreciate the time, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. All right, we're going.
No, I'm sorry, Caitlin. I just want to remind all the participants, you can certainly put your questions in email as well, and we will respond to those requests. Okay.
Okay. Wonderful. I've got Jonathan this time, I think, not Victoria. go ahead. You can unmute yourself if you'd like to speak.
My name is Gus Escher.
Okay.
I am with Jonathan Cloud and
Okay.
Victoria, but I'm not sure why I'm coming in on their line. We have all worked together diligently for, as Victoria said, a decade. So maybe I'll just jump into their line here. My concern is I've been an local elected official in New Jersey, and I've been around local and, well, state and county governments for many, many years. And I share the concern that really several of us have touched on about working with municipality outreach. It's sort of ironic, funny in a way that a lot of municipalities get a big comfort level when they know that there's a state program behind whatever they're doing. And there's a lot of psychological reasons for that, but it's also a good posture to take. The state EDA is going to be designing a program, so that makes it a lot easier. Over the last 10 years, New Jersey PACE, which is the nonprofit I'm talking about with Jonathan and Victoria, New Jersey PACE, we have visited with numerous mayors and towns and all sorts of locals who, are very interested in this program, but they're tentative about, who's really going to do what, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I know that the folks I know at the EDA who have been working on this are smart enough to be clear about that. My comment here is really to say that it may be necessary for the EDA to have someone show up, maybe at the introductory meeting. In New Jersey, there have to be 2 meetings. One is a public meeting, which usually draws all kinds of locals out. But the first meeting is an informational one when they introduce the ordinance, and it may come down, I think it probably should come down to having an official from the EDA for 10, 15 minutes, sort of assuring the town that this is legit. This is approved by a major, competent New Jersey, semi-independent agency. So I hate to tell you, but the EDA may have to get, down into the weeds at that level. That's really all I wanted to underscore. I'm hoping in these next 2 meetings we're going to be having, the gatherings together, there'll be other opportunities to explore other parts of what's going on here. But if today is the municipality outreach and new construction day, I will keep my remarks to the municipal outreach. So thank you, and you've done a wonderful job so far that I can see. It's just great to see this happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Gus. All right, and then Michelle, if you can unmute yourself, you should be able to.
Hi, this is Eric Alini from Counterpoint. Michelle is with me also. I'm the managing partner of Counterpoint. We are a capital provider as well as a program administrator, and I wanted to congratulate EDA on setting up the program in New Jersey. We were actually in the early days of PACE. We were selected as the program administrator for 4 counties in New Jersey, so we are very familiar with the work ahead that you have. And so those are early days. You guys are going to be taking over. We think that's terrific. And we think that doing the PACE, working through the municipalities and PACE can be very complicated with multiple constituents and questions that come out. So I would offer our help. Since we've been through it 4 times, we might be able to be helpful to EDA. So I would offer our either myself or Michelle or our program administrator's guidance. We actually also run the program in Chicago, so we know what it's like to go through the pain you're about to go through. Again, offer our help. Thank you very much and congratulations.
All right, wonderful. Really appreciate that feedback. I don't think anybody else new. So I don't know if presenters have any closing comments or thoughts or reminders. Go ahead and jump on in.
I would just like to thank. I'm sorry.
Oh, actually, okay. We do have Noel who's popping up. If we can go to Noel real quick. Noel, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. My name is Noel Eisenstadt. My name backwards is Leon. So I'm trying to propose a question and not in a question form, but I'm trying to understand if you could. Is this a not? I don't want to ask about the program itself, but I would like to understand: is this a formal rulemaking process or an informal rulemaking process? And what can you share about the rulemaking process you're using here in terms of timing for when you'll be receiving projects, both in the rehab, rehabilitation, and the new construction elements? And I wasn't trying to ask a question, but I don't know how not to.
Are we able to?
I think we can say as a factual matter that the statute expressly states that the program's design process and launch process is not subject to the state's Administrative Procedure Act and therefore not subject to a formal rulemaking, but nonetheless in line with the governor's policies, we are, as a practical matter, treating the process as substantively similar in that we will ensure that there is ample opportunity for public input, before anything is implemented.
And Noel, as I mentioned earlier, looking at the slides regarding the steps, I mean, certainly we have to go through several, board approval processes, governor review, as well as, input from the public. So there's different layers that we're going to have to undertake before, these guidelines and other documentations available for review. And as I mentioned earlier, we're anticipating, sometime in the last quarter of 2022. All right. Well, it looks like we're about coming to the end of this, and I want to thank all the participants who joined today's webinar. As I mentioned earlier, certainly you can pose your questions online. We've listed our email for you to do that. It's Garden State CPACE at NJEDA.com. And as I mentioned, we would be happy to respond to your questions once you send them to us. So
and Kevin, I would just add that when the documents are posted on EDA's website for public comment, there will of course be a press release, as there was for this announcing this webinar. There will be a press release giving the public the heads up. In addition, we have been keeping an email distribution list, that includes anybody that has asked to be on it and to be given, more specific, heads up about development. So I have a feeling that many of the people that dialed in today were on that list, and that we will have the capacity to take those that were not on that list and that are on the call today and add them. But just know that, if you want to make sure that you get notified when the documents are posted, you can just, reach out to us through the mailbox, and we'll make sure that you get, that you're on that list to get touched, directly through an email.
I want to say thank you to everybody who joined us today. Great to be with you all, and we look forward to your engagement as we launch this program. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
thank you.